What if you put them on and you had a little accident and you decide you don't like them?
Probably got to pay for them.
You put them on, you go to the cash machine. The new show 6. I'm Joe.
I'm Alan.
And I'm Dan.
And we're back. And we've got a load of questions for you as usual. If you want to send us your questions, you can do so via email, show@thenew.show, or on Twitter @AskNewShow. And do mention if you want to stay anonymous. Otherwise, we might read your name out. And if you want to support creation of these episodes, go to patreon.com/AskNewShow. And thank you everyone who has been supporting us. And do be warned that you might have to pay a bit of sales tax soon. I'm not sure how all that works, to be honest, but do keep an eye out for that. So the first one then. Would you rather travel 1,000 years into the past or the future? And this is from Barn.
Do you have to stay where you are, or is it like anywhere in the world?
I think you have to stay where you are.
I don't think there was a whole lot here 1,000 years ago. So I'm probably going to go into the future.
What would you see?
Oh, in 1,000 years? Who knows? It would be crazy. I don't think you could possibly speculate what you might see 1,000 years in the future.
A big black sky and a nuclear charred landscape. That's what I reckon you'll see in 1,000 years.
God, I hope not.
I think that's my problem with wanting to jump into the future. And obviously there are nerds shouting at their podcast player right now that 1,000 years in the past or 1,000 years in the future, Earth has moved millions of miles. And so if you go back, you'll be floating in space. Let's just assume you're back on Earth in the right location, right?
Relative to Earth still.
Yes. I do worry that if I skipped 100 years into the future, I would be massively disappointed because some of the crap that we still have now would be there in 1,000 years. I don't think it would be flying cars and skyscrapers all over the planet. I have a horrible feeling it would just be, like Joe says, a scarred landscape, and we just will have made a mess of the place in 1,000 years, because we've done pretty good in the last 1,000 years of screwing everything up, despite our technological advances. I would imagine if we extrapolate forward 1,000, it will just get worse. So yeah, I think I would not want to go into the future. I'd want to go in the past, because I have that kind of nostalgic feeling when I look at photographs from 100 years ago, and I wonder what it was like around where I lived 100, 200, 300 years ago. I mean, I know it was a farm. Where I live, it was just a farm. But I'd quite like to go back 1,000 years and see the nearest town and the oldest building that they would have, whether it's a church or a cathedral or something. I'd like to have a wander around where there wouldn't be all of the modern buildings. There wouldn't be street lights. There wouldn't be roads, or there wouldn't be like tarmacked roads. I quite like the idea of that simpler time 1,000 years ago.
I thought about this, and you'd be just before William the Conqueror. You'd be about half a century before William the Conqueror. I don't know. I feel like I could read about that time. And yeah, it's not the same as living it, but you could find out a fair bit about it and talk to an archaeologist at length or whatever. Whereas the future is something that you can't know unless you have this magic time travel machine. So I would have to say the future just out of curiosity, because there's no other way to get there than using this. You can't find out about it. And it might be a utopia. We might have managed to get over all of the world's problems, or it might be a charred mess, but I'd like to find out. So for me, there's just no other answer than the future.
I don't know. I still think you'll be massively disappointed by the mess. Whereas for the past, yeah, okay, a historian can tell you broad brush, what things looked like and what people ate and how they lived, but not the real nuts and bolts of the conversations people had. What did people worry about? What did people do for entertainment? And actually see it with your own eyes. And if you don't like it, move on to another place and see what it's like somewhere else. I really would love to see if, 1,000 years ago, the stuff that the Romans had done really was, as spectacular as we think, and the roads really did look the way we see them in history books. How right were they? I would love to go back and just, be able to take a digital camera back with me and take a load of photos and bring them forward and say, hey, look, you were right. Or nope, they did not dress like that. You got the colors all wrong. And, just learn from what it was like back then. I'd love that.
I feel like there's probably a lot of preventable deaths.
Yeah. As someone who's recently had an ear infection, I'm very glad to have antibiotics and powerful painkillers, stuff that you would not have 1,000 years ago.
Yeah, I don't know. You probably got a bunch of fucking demons in your head and you're going to die soon. Or in the future, they'd be like, hey, you're going to have cancer in 15 years. Don't worry, we cured it.
Yeah, exactly. There's the chance that might be the situation. It might not be a child mess. And so you've got to go for the future because it's the unknown.
It definitely wouldn't be a utopia, though. We just invent new problems. He'd be upset about increasingly more first world things.
Probably. Don't get me wrong, though. I would like to do both, but you have to choose in this question. And so I do understand the motivation of wanting to go 1,000 years back, but it's got to be the future.
In 1,000 years in the future, I'm sure they'll have really good VR.
Yeah.
Because if there's one thing we're good at, it's investing in entertainment.
I think that's going to be a problem because space is going to be a premium. And so, VR might be a way for you to get out of your mundane life, just like you see in Ready Player One. But the population is already quite high on this planet. And in 1,000 years, how much higher is it going to be? And how are we going to cope with that? What's the world going to look like with 10 billion people in it?
We'll just all be strapped into the Matrix with feeding tubes, and it'll all be virtual.
Yeah, I'd rather go to the past and sit on a farm, thanks.
You could sit in the farm in the Matrix.
Oh, so that's how you do it. You go forward 1,000 years and then sit in a VR experience of 2,000 years ago. There we go.
Yeah. What's your advice for someone who wants to turn being a Linux and open source hobbyist into a career of some sort? And this is from Kyle.
Isn't this really just like any other career? Like you need to set goals that you need to attain in order to get into that career, whatever that might be. You may need to skill up on something, do some research on the companies that work in that sector, figure out what skills you need and, learn the skills that are required in order to get in there. And for open source companies, it's common for you to contribute maybe as an outsider to a project. Maybe if it's a free software project, maybe you contribute to the project and your contributions are seen by the project and there may be a chance for an opening for you to apply for. I mean, that's a very speculative way to do it. And I know a lot of people have done it, but it's not really a recipe. But certainly targeting businesses that work in the sector you want to work in and skilling up is like fundamental 101, surely.
Well, there's 4 things you need for any career, right? Skills, proof of those skills, experience, and contacts. And how you get those 4 things depends. And I suppose open source is one of the easier ways to do that because you can contribute to projects and stuff, right?
Right. And that contribution can be in a number of ways. And we've talked about people contributing to open source in terms of code or documentation or tutorials or artwork or support. There's lots of ways, you can contribute depending upon where your main core skills lie. And certainly having your contributions in an open source code hosting system like GitHub where you can show your contributions. And I know, employers look at that kind of stuff. They want to see your GitHub history and they want to see your code commits so they can see what skills you've got and how regularly you contribute and the way in which you convey yourself. And all these are, factors that go into a potential employer's mind when they're thinking about whether to hire you. But I think the question is a bit wonky because I don't know whether the premise is, you've never done anything in this area and you're a chef and you want to change your career and get into open source. Or are we talking about someone who's already skilled up in some ways and just wants to move from one place to another? I think they're very different approaches.
Yeah, I guess it depends too on is your goal that you want to be hired to work on some open source technology at another company, or do you have something that you're already working on that's your pet open source project that you want to monetize? Because that's a totally different path, right?
Is it that different though? Because the contacts part of it, I think, is much more important than a lot of people think. If you've got friends in the right places, you can get pretty far in this world.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, just in terms of it's a pretty different set of skills that are going to come into play if you're trying to monetize your open source work compared to being hired somewhere, unless you get lucky and you're like Christian Hergert, right, that got hired at Red Hat to work on Builder that he was already working on, right? Like, that's amazing, but I don't think most people do it like that. I think probably most people, when they get hired to work for a company on open source software, it's whatever the project manager at that company wants you to work on, right?
Yeah, I think it's unusual for people to get hired into an open source company because of their contributions to the product that company already makes. Obviously, I see a lot of that because that's what's happened at Canonical a lot over the years. We've hired a lot of developers who've worked on things around Ubuntu and things around Linux and open source, and their reputation in the community was valuable. And I know that's not really the case so much these days. So yeah, you certainly can't use that as a recipe for how to get hired by a company. And I'm not entirely sure contacts is necessarily, unless you're trying to, specifically spearfish a particular person in order to get hired onto that team. If you just want to get hired in open source, then, you need those generic skills or specific skills for a particular company if you're trying to get hired by that company. But most companies have all their roles out in the public and you can apply for them. And sure, if you happen to know someone who knows someone, maybe you could get your CV bumped up the pile and maybe you'll get an interview where you might not if you didn't know them. But I don't think necessarily having a contact in the industry is necessarily vital.
I guess in what we do, that maybe contacts could be translated into like community. Like if you're somebody who is working on something that's really important to elementary, for example, and, we decide that, hey, we need to hire a contractor for a couple months to really dive into this one thing, then, we'll pull from our volunteer pool first before like going on a massive job hunt, right? So if you're already part of that volunteer community, that you're probably more visible and they go, hey, they're the person that knows how to do that thing. We already know them. Let's see if they're interested in some contract work.
And the other way to do it is to start your own project and chart your own path rather than trying to get hired by some other company. Create your own project, find a niche or create things that people desire and chart your own path, start a business, work on it yourself rather than, maybe as a spare time project outside of your normal day job. And use that to start your new career. I know a lot of game developers do that. Indie game developers work on games on the side, sometimes for years, while they're doing some other job, which may or may not be game dev related. And they use their spare time in the evenings after family time in order to kickstart their alternative career. And there's no different to open source. Like a lot of open source contributors who create new projects do so in their spare time. And that's an alternative rather than targeting a company, create something that's new and notable.
Yeah. And if you do something that's valuable to enough people, then you go and set up a Patreon or GitHub sponsors or just charge for the binaries on your website or, whatever way you want to decide to monetize. There's lots of different ways. If you're doing something that's interesting, then you can bring in income doing it for sure.
Do you prefer reading physical books or digital books, and why? And this is from Jake.
That's a hard one because there are trade-offs, right? Like you can't replicate the experience of lying in bed, holding a physical book and the way the pages feel and the way that a new book smells. And like those things are unique to that experience. And so sometimes that's what you need from reading a book. It's not necessarily about just the words on the page, but the experience of having the book is what you're looking for. But on the other hand, for books where I don't really care about the experience of the book and I'm just trying to like pull information out of a thing, then in that way, I'd rather just read it on my phone, because it's not like I'm cuddling up with this book. I want to get the information out of it, and that's it.
Yeah, I'm torn. The question is posed as a kind of either or, but why not both? I love real books. I love the feel of them. I love the fact that you can scan forward and backwards super fast in a book. Like, you're halfway through and you think, wait, what was that thing I read back in chapter 2? And you can just zip back near instantly to another page. And even if you don't hit the right page instantly, flicking through the pages is a very tactile thing and is an enjoyable feeling of paper moving between your hands. Whereas an electronic book seems more like a data acquisition device. It's like if you just want to ingest the words and not necessarily enjoy the experience and focus totally on the story and the words, then sure, an electronic book is fine, especially if you're a hardcore reader who burns through tons of books and travels a lot, then sure, electronic books are great. But I do love that feeling of a real book, and especially older books. If I pick up a book on Amazon that's old, I kind of enjoy that more. Like a super old book about, computers from the past that was written in the past, I will enjoy way more holding the book than I would if I bought it on a Kindle, for example.
Well, I've only read a handful of books in my life. I should be ashamed to say that, but I've listened to more books than I can count. And so my answer is neither. My answer is audiobooks. I find that just much more convenient while I'm going for a walk or just when I would normally be listening to podcasts. I haven't done it for a while, and I ought to, because I'm getting a bit bored of podcasts at the moment. But yeah, audiobooks.
I find it difficult to find time for audiobooks, and I find myself sometimes listening to them in bed and then falling asleep, and then I have to restart from the beginning because I can't remember how far I got through it.
Yeah.
And so I find I'm wasting time re-listening or trying to skip forward to the bit where I had, just past where I'd already listened to, and then I'm wasting time and I'm getting frustrated, and it's not helping me go to sleep at all.
I like audiobooks for like self-improvement kind of books, especially because they tend to be like kind of repetitive, and it seems to fit more in like a lecture format. So I could just kind of put that on and listen to it. But I don't think that I would enjoy hearing a fiction book. There's something about the experience of having that full picture of what's going on in your mind's eye when you're reading the words, and even like thinking of how the characters sound is a part of that experience that I think, I don't know, it's just different.
Does it count as reading the book if you've only listened to it?
For some definition of reading, sure, why not?
Yeah, totally. It's like when a blind person watches a film, can you really say they've watched a film? Okay, use a different adjective, but it doesn't matter. They've experienced the thing that the director made.
Different verb, but yeah.
Sorry. Words are hard.
Yeah.
Let's go shopping. So there's 3 or 4 books that I have read in audio form. Oh God, I've lost count. 10s, maybe 100 times. So it's stupid. I should read new and different books, but there are a few books that I just love so much that I've listened to, so many times, usually when I'm going to bed. And because I've listened to them so many times, I can just dive in at any point in the book and listen from any point in the book because I've heard it all before. And it's better than a podcast because it's all familiar and I know what's happening. And it's like it's almost like someone singing you a song and getting you to sleep because you know what the lyrics of the song are and you know the cadence of the song because I've heard this book so many times. I find re-listening to books more enjoyable actually than listening to books for the first time.
That's an interesting point that I hadn't considered. If you're not necessarily needing to pay attention because you already know how it goes, that I could imagine that being very pleasant.
If you're going to be stuck on an isolated island for a couple of years with no internet, but a power source and a computer, which OS or distro would you choose? And this is from Max. There's clearly one answer to this, and I think we're all going to say it.
Endless OS?
Yes.
No.
Yes. Because you'd have Wikipedia.
Exactly. You've got most of Wikipedia, or at least the English speaking. You could just entertain yourself for a couple of years, no problem with Endless OS.
Well, you could also look up like how to make things to survive.
Well, yeah, that's true. How to make fire and stuff.
Yeah.
I would not. I would, if I've got the opportunity to be on a desert island, I think I would ask for a really old ThinkPad that's got MS-DOS and a bunch of old DOS games that I never finished 30 years ago. And I would play those to death because the reduced complexity of that computer and the operating system meant that I'm not going to worry about grub fucking up or the file system screwing up or some wacky shit happening with the operating system. It's robust. It was made many years ago and it's lasted this long. It will last a couple of years on a desert island. And I could fill the hard drive with lots and lots of games to entertain me. And I would probably not spend much time on the computer because I would want to make the most of being on a desert island. And so I would actually eschew a fast gaming computer or Wikipedia because I don't need that shit. I just want to survive on this island and enjoy the experience.
I feel like without Wikipedia, playing those games to death is going to be really short.
I don't know. I'm pretty shit at these games. So that I could make that spin out for a couple of years. Plus, a hard drive can hold quite a lot of old MS-DOS games.
I just meant you'd be dead very quickly.
Oh. Well, I'm assuming that if the island has got a power source, there must be some food. It's not just like an island in the middle of the ocean with a power cable trailing to it somehow.
Yeah, I'm assuming this is like the bunker in Lost, and that's that's what you get. You got a crazy island with a computer in a hole somewhere.
So I'm thinking of the Tom Hanks film Castaway.
Yeah.
That's the kind of island I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Really bare bones island, and I'd be eating crabs and coconuts. And that's about it. And drinking water that I've gathered out of leaves after a rainy day. I've seen that film many times. So I think I'm okay. I think I would survive so long as some ice skates and maybe a basketball washed up on the sea. I'd probably be all right.
It was a volleyball.
Was it a volleyball? Oh, okay.
Yeah, Wilson was a volleyball.
Yeah.
I know this is like the most whiny, lame thing ever, but I feel like for a little while, I'd be like, ew, I don't like seafood. Then once the starvation kicks in, I'd be like, fuck yeah, crabs.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan, but I think you'd pretty quickly get used to it if you had to. I'd miss Monster Munch, though. Not really. I haven't eaten Monster Munch for years. Is it okay to throw stuff in other people's bins?
What kind of stuff? Are we talking like just like papers, or are we talking like poop, like animal poop?
I think that is definitely not okay. I think, well, take for example, my neighbours all put their recycling out in the same place. And so if I happen to be walking by with a can of drink or a bottle of drink and I finish it, I don't feel bad about putting one bottle in their recycling rather than mine if it's closer.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
No, you should feel terrible for doing that.
Why?
The rubbish bin contains my stuff until it's been taken away. That is an extension of my house. It's my property. It's not a service that is paid for by you. I'm paying my council tax. I'm paying for my bin to be taken away. I'm not paying for your fucking rubbish to be taken away.
Yeah, but if your recycling's out already on the public street, then it's fair game as far as I'm concerned. As long as you don't put stuff that doesn't belong in there, but one extra can of bottle is not going to make any difference.
Well, it might, because you don't know if I've finished putting all my recycling in the bin. I might have put the bin out and then come back in the house and see piles of cardboard that I got from Amazon. I think, oh, crap, I need to put that in the recycle bin because recycling is getting collected tomorrow. And so I fold it all up and I go out, and your bloody can has stopped me being able to put all my Amazon boxes in there.
Well, where I am, it would be a different bin for that.
Well, okay. I've had a party and I've got a box full of cans and I can't fit those cans in the bin because your can's in there.
No, you can't fit one can in there because my one can's in there.
Which is outrageous. It's my bin. Get your fucking can out of my bin.
You telling me you can't squish one more can in there?
Well, I might not be able to.
Is this a real stance you really have? I'm unsure if this is a troll.
I think if it's disgusting stuff, though, that's just not on at all.
Yeah, if you're throwing like a big old fucking thing of dirty diapers in my bin, like, fuck you, don't do that. But if it's a can, like, I don't really care.
Why? Why is it different depending upon what the item is?
Because like you said, if I got to go back into the bin because I'm going to throw more stuff in there and I open it up and get a face full of your kid's shit, then I'm going to have a bad day. And that's, it's different than just an empty can. It doesn't smell like anything.
Well, it's not the smell. It's just the inconvenience that I'm going to have to hang that can over for next week's bin. And then next week's bin is going to be offset slightly.
How big are these cans that you can't fit one more in there?
I think it's just a territorial thing, isn't it?
That's part of it, yeah. And the fact that it's not far off walking into my house and putting a can in my bin.
I think it's very far off.
Well, no, it's my property. It's my stuff. It's my container that I'm paying to be taken away by the council. And you've chosen to subvert that and put your trash in my bin. And I think that's wrong. What if someone comes along and takes the stuff out of your bin? What if someone has a deal with someone where they can get money for recycling your aluminium that's in your bin? What if they come around and take stuff out? Is that bad?
I don't mind as long as you don't make a mess. I feel like that some people will come by and do that and it's whatever. And then some people will be disruptive and loud and make a mess. And like, that's uncool. Like, it's garbage to me. So if you can turn it into value, great. But not if you're going to be disruptive about it.
I don't know. I've on more than one occasion gone out to the recycle bin to retrieve something. So, for example, I needed a large plastic bottle for something, a large plastic Coke bottle for some reason. And I thought, I chucked one of those in the recycling. And the recycling is relatively clean. So I just go and reach in and grab it back out again. So there's the possibility at some point I might go back to the recycle bin and get something out because, again, that's my property. Until the bin men take it away, it's mine. And so if someone comes along and put stuff in or take stuff out, they're inconveniencing me in some way, potentially. They don't know that, but they might be. That's why I say no.
Fun fact, by the way, under the UK law, you are responsible for that rubbish indefinitely.
Like even after they come and get it?
Yes.
Even after it's been recycled into something else?
Yeah, they'd be like, hey, this used to be Alan's, that bastard. He's responsible for this.
You are responsible in that you use someone who is responsible themselves to take it away. And if they go and burn it or dump it, then you are liable for it.
I guess that makes sense. That's
good. So that reinforces my idea that people shouldn't add to or take away from my shit because I'm responsible for that shit.
Yes. If I put some asbestos in your recycling, then you could get in very serious trouble, for example.
Yeah, that would be a problem.
Vindicated.
I still think that depends. Yeah, if you're putting gross shit in my can, stop. But if it's a bottle, I don't care. Do it. Put two bottles.
What if someone's spying on me and you've put stuff in my bin and they get misconceptions and they think I'm a massive alcoholic who drinks cider and I can say, well, no, I haven't bought that cider, but your bin is full of it.
Then I think you should pay them for helping give you an alibi and muddying the paper trail.
I'm still bitter because I moved into this house 20 years ago and the neighbors next door stole our bin and I didn't have the balls to go around there and tell them that's my bin. It's like slightly larger than the one we've got and they swapped them and I noticed, but I didn't say anything at the time. And now 20 years have passed and 3 different families have lived in that house and I'm still pissed off about it and I can't go around there and steal it back. I have to wait for someone to move out and then I'll steal it.
What if that's what happened to you and it was originally their bin? They're stealing it back.
That is possible.
This just goes on forever.